Buying a home is the American dream and should be one of the most exciting experiences that can last for years. But even one small mistake could turn it from lilies and unicorns to walking in a park on a rainy day. Here, I'm going to share with you the 8 most common mistakes first-time homebuyers make and how you can avoid them, making sure that your walk in a park is on a sunny day. What's up YouTube? Tyler here, your Nebraska realtor. Okay, listen, I'm excited about sharing these first-time homebuyer mistakes because every time I share these with my clients, it's like a light bulb turns on and there's almost no issues in the transactions. But I have to be honest with you, one of my favorite mistakes to share is also my favorite tip and far exceeds the rest. So hang out with me till the end, and I promise you that by the end, you'll be ready to take this home search experience by the horns. So let's begin at the beginning. The first mistake buyers make before they even begin their search is not getting a pre-approval letter from the bank. Guys, this is a no-brainer. It's free, there's no commitment on your part whatsoever, and by the end of your 20-minute conversation, you'll know a couple of things. 1, you'll know exactly what your spending limit is. Number 2, you'll know exactly what your payment's going to be based on what you can afford. And then 3, you're gonna know what it's going to cost you to actually buy a house. Plus, by having your pre-approval letter in hand, you're gonna get the royal treatment from realtors. Us realtors, we don't get paid unless we actually help someone buy a home. So any smart realtor is going to give special attention to those buyers that are serious and have their pre-approval letter in hand. So moving right along to mistake number 2. As you've come to realize, there's not a manual on how to buy a house or the etiquettes of working with a realtor. You kind of just wing it, to be honest. And the big juggernauts of the industry realize this. Industries like Zillow and Realtor.com, they use this to their advantage and they pad their pockets at your expense. I'm sure you've jumped online and have looked at houses and seen the infamous contact an agent button. And without really thinking about it, buyers click on this to request to see a home that they saw online, and they look at it with a random agent. This is a monumental mistake. I know what you're thinking.
You're kidding me, right, Tyler? I mean, all they're doing is showing me a house, opening the door to see a home. How could they possibly mess this up?
Let me tell you.
First off, the only reason they're getting in front of you and getting that request is because they're paying Zillow hundreds of dollars, if not thousands, to get your request. Zillow has 2 qualifications. Do you breathe and have a license, and will you pay us? And that's how they get your information. So by avoiding these common mistakes, and quite frankly, any other mistake you may come across greatly depends on and is directly correlated to the agent you're working with. Guys, there are over 2 million agents in the United States. 80% sell less than 12 homes a year. So the chances of you getting a realtor that's an amateur is much more likely than getting connected with a full-time professional if you leave it to chance. So, are you willing to leave your dream home in the hands of Russian roulette? If not, get a referral from a friend or find someone that has expressed their experience to you and has shown you competence. Maybe in a YouTube video or something like that. Anyways, mistake number 3. I remember when I bought my first house. It hit all of the check boxes within our budget and we fell in love with it. And it was clear that we saw everything through rose-colored glasses. It wasn't until after we moved in that I realized that the neighbor next door was a hoarder. He literally had 7 cars in his single-lane driveway. and a garage stuffed floor to ceiling was junk. And that was just what we could see from our driveway. Many first-time homebuyers make the same mistake of falling in love with a house instead of a neighborhood. You will be leaps and bounds ahead by finding a rough house in a great neighborhood instead of an updated one in a bad area. What's going to drive the value of that home is 85% dependent on the neighborhood it's in. So before you ever walk through the front door, look across the street and next door to see if the block is kept up. If it's not, it's most likely because many of the homes there could be rentals, which can pull down the value of the area, or it could be a low-income area as well. Now that we've found a house, it's time to negotiate an offer. And there are common negotiating mistakes I see all the time. So, mistake number 4. A buyer submitting a personal letter with their offer to the seller. You must remember that these sellers were once buyers of this home and fell in love with it just like you are today. By writing a letter to a seller, you connect with them on an emotional level that is deeper than the amount of money they're going to be getting and could mean you getting a better deal or winning the bid against another offer. If you think I'm kidding, I'm not. I have literally had a seller go against my own recommendation and accept a lower offer because the buyers wrote a letter how they love dogs and how they love their seller's dog. And guess what? The buyer won the heart of my seller and accepted their lower offer. Now, the best part of all of this is that it's 100% free to you to write a letter, but it could save you literally hundreds, if not thousands of dollars at the end of the day. Mistake number 5. So you put in an offer on a house, but the seller comes back and tells you that there's multiple offers and to submit your highest and best offer. So you and your wife or your spouse talk about it and you decide to increase your offer by $10,000, let's say. You get a call a little bit later saying that it was close, but that you won the offer. Now you're full of excitement and bliss because you are this close to getting your dream home. But what if I told you that the other offer was below the asking price and they also asked for $5,000 in closing cost? Now that excitement turns into an overwhelming, gut-wrenching feeling that you overpaid for the house and you'll never forgive yourself. Well, guys, there is a way to make sure that you win and not overpay for the house, and that is with an escalation clause. Here's an example. This clause states what your initial offer is, let's say $195,000 from their $200,000 asking price. But then it goes on to say that you're willing to pay $2,000 more than the highest written offer, up to $210,000, or a number that you're comfortable with. And then they provide proof of the other offers. If the other offer was $203,000, you would be paying $205,000, $2,000 more, and then you would get the house. Guys, this was literally a deal of mine that went through with one of my clients. The seller's agent told me that there was another offer, so we wrote up an escalation clause, and guess what we got it for? $195,000. The agent conveniently forgot to tell me that the other offer backed out last minute. So if you want to increase your odds of getting a home without increasing the risk of overpaying, then I would recommend considering getting an escalation clause. Okay, so now we got the offer accepted and you're moving towards that closing day. During this 45-day period, there are mistakes that you should avoid, and if you don't, could cost you dearly. So mistake number 6. It's not uncommon in your offer when you're competing against multiple offers that your agent could recommend you removing your home inspection. This is most likely because there may be another buyer out there that's willing to do that same thing. If you do decide to go down this route, I recommend an alternative. That would be to do an inspection for informational purposes only, with the option to exercise option C of the contract. In layman's terms, it says, we'll buy your house as is, but we want to do an inspection just so that we know everything about the house. And if, let's say, there's a giant crack in the foundation, I reserve the right to be able to walk away and get all my money back if I decide to leave. To most sellers, this seems fair because to them, they're guaranteed to not have to pay for any repairs that may show up, but also protects you in case there is a major repair that you don't want to deal with later down the road. Also, it's during the inspection period that emotions can get high and lead us to mistake number 7. Buyers thinking that the seller is out to get them. This is more common than you think. When you're dealing with hundreds of thousands of dollars, emotions can get the best of us. In the past, I've had clients that believed that the seller was out to get them, and then while talking to the other agent, the seller feels the exact same way. The best thing you can do to diffuse the situation is to put yourself in the other person's shoes and think about how they may be feeling. Now, I'm not asking you to ignore everything the seller may be doing, but to keep a level head throughout the closing period. And remember that both of you want the same thing in the end, and keep that as your focal point to get through the transaction. Mistake number 8. When it comes to getting a loan, you'll come to realize that the bank requires an excruciating amount of detail about your financial position to determine if you're a good candidate for a home loan. There are several mistakes, and I want to group a few of the most common here. Number 1, taking out a personal loan to buy a car or another large purchase. This reduces the amount that the bank can actually lend you, and if you're not careful, could keep you from closing on a home. And if you try to go do it at another bank, don't worry, they'll find out. So don't try to sneak one past them. Another is changing jobs in the middle of purchasing a home. Unless you're moving because of a job relocation, it's always safer to save any life changes till after you close on a house. Unless you decide that this life change could affect your home situation, then don't buy a house altogether. Any changes during this closing period could affect your ability to get a loan. And lastly, not getting the requested documentation to the lender. Honestly, guys, I don't quite understand why this is such an issue for buyers, but it's very common. There are certain timelines that a bank has to keep up with, and if you don't get the proper documentation to them in time, it could delay your closing, or it could even cause it to fall apart. I bring these and all these other mistakes up to articulate that if you partner with the right agent, you're going to be much better off and have a much lower risk of making these common mistakes. Guys, if this information was helpful, would you give me a big thumbs up? And I want to hear from you. So put in the comments below, did these mistakes make sense to you? If you're buying a house right now, which one do you connect with the most or will help you get across the finish line? As always, it is my mission to help you guys build confidence in buying a home. So thanks for watching, guys, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the next video.